Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore them.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And Anthony, it's kind of a potpourri Friday. We got a little bit of everything today.
Yes, we do.
It's Football Friday. We got football to talk about from last night. We got college and pro football to talk about this weekend. I will say the theme of today's show is we're tracking a very important Amazon package. So this, if you're going to be tuned in for the 2 hours and 45 minutes that we have of us talking today, we're off at 6:45. Who we got? Terps tonight? Georgetown tonight? Who's playing tonight?
Georgetown, baby.
Georgetown playing tonight. Hoya's playing tonight. At 7 following us. So 6:45 pregame. So in the 2 hours and 45 minutes, but it's really the next hour and a half, we're tracking the Groucho Marx glasses that I am supposed to wear during our NFL Picks segment. The good news is, because it's a Friday and I'm working from my home studio, if it's delivered at any point before the segment, I can, even if I got to sprint, I'll go get those glasses. There's a chance I start that segment if that thing gets delivered at 5:25 and I can go down and get it, I'm going to sprint. In that 28-degree weather outside, I might not be able to talk. Anthony, you might have to lead the pick segment. But I will look like a goofball in my Groucho Marx glasses because that is what Competition Wednesday and a Wheel of Mediocre Punishment is all about. However, Anthony's did get delivered in time. And Anthony has them. Are you going to do the whole show like this, or are you just going to do the segment like you have to?
So I have another accessory to even add to this.
Oh, okay.
I'm showing the people that I have mine.
Yeah, yours did arrive in time for you to leave for work on time.
Oh my gosh, Greg, I look crazy.
You look absolutely ridiculous, and I can't wait to join you. So that's coming up at 5:30. If the Amazon delivery driver that is currently around the corner from my house, so if you're out there and you're an Amazon delivery driver and you're listening to the show, let's keep things moving because I'm not saying where I live. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving away my job. I'm not saying, hey, if you're driving around, no. Just saying, if you're an Amazon delivery driver and you listen to the show, and maybe you like to like to watch the show on YouTube, especially you enjoy the social media content at Hoffman.sports on Instagram or on Craig Hoffman on TikTok, whatever it is. Just keep those deliveries moving because you might hold the key to today's show. Last night, Anthony, Thursday Night Football. Holy cow. What a ridiculous game. And it comes down to this decision by Dan Campbell on 4th and inches in field goal range. He could kick a field goal, go up, 40 seconds left. Hey, you got to drive the length of the field. And if you get a field goal, congratulations. No timeouts for the Packers. Every coach in the league that's not Dan Campbell kicks that field goal. Dan Campbell says, if I get this first down, then I can get a closer field goal, and I can do it as time expires, and that's the end of the football game. I don't give the ball back to the Packers offense. And they got the first down. That decision by Campbell is one that you make in Madden when you can quit and not take the L. Like if you're playing franchise mode and you can just quit the game if you don't like the result, you're like, it's 4th and inches. Also, Anthony is a more frequent Madden player than me. If it's inches, does QB sneak never not work?
Sometimes it does not. Sometimes.
I have not had a failure on a QB sneak yet.
I will tell you 90% of the time, 90, maybe 95, 96, it works.
Yeah, because they just fall forward.
Yeah.
I guess they could fall forward into an O lineman and whatever, but like.
But I've stopped it a couple of times. Well, not stopped it because they ran it again and then they scored. But again,
that seems rather specific.
Yeah. Those are the few times it does not work.
And last night, he went for a bunch of 4th downs because that's what they do. And that's actually a point I want to get to in a second. But that decision in particular is one that, there's no do-over. There's no quick game. Like, to do that in that spot is pretty freaking remarkable. And they get it. Of course, they run behind Penei Sewell because why wouldn't you run behind Penei Sewell? I heard Derek Klassen on the Athletic Football Show the other day. He goes, Penei Sewell might be one of the best offensive players in football. And we never think of offensive linemen that way, but like, is he wrong? I don't think so. And so they get it. Bates kicks the field goal. Lions win. They clinch a playoff spot. Packers fall. In a couple minutes here, we're going to lay out the NFC specifically playoff picture and look at it through a Commander's perspective. But the 4th down earlier in the game where they then wind up giving up a score because they don't get it, like that call is a little bit crazy to me. I hate outside runs on 4th and 1. If you have inches to go or you have a foot to go, even if you go in the shotgun, I'm less upset about shotgun runs than I am outside runs with a running back. Quarterback on like a read option, or if your quarterback can throw situation, I'm okay going for the perimeter. Shotgun, I don't mind as much because the running back is going to start in the dot. So if you like your angles or whatever in the run game better out of shotgun, fine. I would under center is less predictable. I'd prefer under center. But to go to the perimeter, even with Penei Sewell out in front, seems a little bit crazy. But the Lions ultimately make a bunch of other plays too. Goff has some great throws in this game. Some big catches by St. Brown, including the one right before on that last drive that sets them up in that short yardage situation to begin with. What a day for Tim Patrick, who's had a heck of a ride the past couple of years, gets in the end zone. Also, the hitting in this game, Anthony, was crazy. A couple of collisions between Jack Campbell and Tucker Kraft that like mere mortals don't survive. There's the one where Tucker Kraft does like the flip kick back up, and you're like,
man,
what? It's the 4th quarter of a game where you've gotten your ass kicked and done some ass kicking. Aren't you tired? Branch, the way that dude hits, my God, just what a game. And we've been lucky on Thursday Night Football to get a couple of those this year, but that one, considering the stakes, I feel like is the most special and probably the best one we'll get all year, surpassing that Cincy-Baltimore game, in part because in hindsight, maybe it would have meant more if Cincy had won, but they've kept losing a bunch of other games. So to have this game at that stage of the season, like, that was cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, definitely enjoyed it. And just considering everything the Lions have been through defensively, the fact their offense can, help them out, got to be a good feeling, man, just because they've been ravaged by injuries, like, including their best player, Aiden Hutchinson.
And they don't lose their identity. Like,
Nope,
they still
not
hit
at
the
all.
crap out of people.
Nope.
Did you see Campbell's locker room speech after?
I didn't.
Oh, my God. It's so good. It's just
He
like
looked excited, though.
pure uncut, is that guy on cocaine, Dan Campbell. And he's just like, doesn't matter who, like, it was such a funny statement if you think about it substantively, but it's also so powerful. He goes, it doesn't matter who plays for us. And it's like, that is identity. Like, that is, if you can say that about your team as a coaching staff, as a front office, you've done an A+ job. If it literally doesn't matter, not that it doesn't matter, right? Because, like, they wouldn't have given up 30 whatever points they gave up last night if Aiden Hutchinson and Malcolm Rodriguez and like all these dudes that are out weren't out. The talent obviously matters in making plays. But from a style, from an identity standpoint, and you hear Quinn talk about this all the time here, if you can interchange players like that, where you're down, I think it's 7 starters, and you still feel like you, that's incredible. And that actually goes to, like, my one, I don't want to call it gripe, my one, like, come on, Dan, with Quinn this year has been the 4th down thing. Like, say what you want about Dan Campbell and the chutzpah it takes to do what he does. And statistically, analytically, he's probably correct on the amount he goes for it. That one last night, there ain't no way that was the right call. Kick the field goal, man. It's a tie game. And they got no timeouts. They got like 2 plays. And do teams do that? Yeah. But if you're prepared situationally, and, like, to his credit, he knows his defense is banged up. He knows that, like, what he's dealing with. He'd rather trust his offense. And so in that way, I appreciate that about Dan Campbell. But, like, that's actually kind of my point, is there's a consistency with him in trusting his offense and saying, we are going to take the game to you with these guys. This is the best we've got. We have the best offensive line, or the second best, whatever. He would certainly say it's the best. We have the best offensive line in football. You're good enough for us, Jared Goff. You've got Gibbs, you've got Montgomery, you've got St. Brown. Like, you just had Jamison Williams, Laporta. Like, they got a goon squad offensively. So why wouldn't you put the game in their hands? And, like, for the Commanders, I think sometimes this year I've looked at them and gone, like, your defense is trying their best, and damn, are they trying hard. But, like, we know what they are. Offensively is kind of where you need to carry it. Your bread is buttered by Brian Robinson and Jaden Daniels. And your kicking situation has been less than ideal. Even though when Seibert was great, like, he was great from a very specific range. He was not a long-range guy. And that's what's kind of, at times, gotten, I don't say under my, like, annoyed me, I think is the proper amount of negative. I've been annoyed that at times, even though they started the year, 13 for 13 on 4th down, they would kick these 50-yard field goals with a kicker who wasn't really up for kicking 50-yard field goals. And I think when you talk about being bold and you talk about being aggressive and you talk about being assertive and some of the things that Quinn talks about as an identity, nobody lives that stuff more than the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell. And it's not always going to work, but neither is kicking the field goal either. There are no guarantees in football. And so I think I appreciate what Campbell did last night because it stayed so true to who they were, and who they are is exactly who they've stated that they want to be. And then they go out and do it, and they're the best team in the league. They're, 12, 13-1 at this point. Mm-hmm. And, the only reason they don't have the number 1 seed locked up is because the Eagles haven't lost a game since September either. And so kudos to them. And I don't know, Ant, that's the thing. That's the thing that gets me with Detroit is they're exactly who they say they are. And that's all you can ever want to be as a football team.
Yeah, I mean, again, shout out to, their GMs, the way they built this team. I think just having the trenches that the guys that they have in the trenches is so important, and we're seeing it like day in and day out. You got Zeitler, you got Penny Sewell, you got Ragnow. Like,
yeah,
they have guys. So again, like, if he can lean on and trust his offense to go out there, considering like what they have endured defensively, I can't say anything about it, to be honest. Like,
right,
it's them.
Right. 100%. It is them. And by the way, Lance Newmark was in Detroit for a long time, including a lot of losing, but like, he was also a part of building this winning team.
Yeah.
And Ben Sosna and some of the other guys that they poached from Detroit for the Commanders front office were there too. So, and by the way, Adam Peters seems pretty good at his job. So it seems like this could be definitely a plan for Washington. And something that I thought about too for Washington is like you see how this Detroit team was built through the trenches and through the offensive line, and obviously Commanders went quarterback as they should have last year. It's working out quite all right. Seems like very much the right selection. But moving forward, we spent so much time talking about wide receiver, for instance. Imagine what they could do with like a truly dominant offensive line. And I kind of wonder if that might be a path they go instead of more of the Cincinnati path, if you will, where you get the quarterback, you get a couple weapons, and you just go like, this guy's going to carry us. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, where does that loss leave the Packers relative to the Commanders? And what about the rest of the teams vying for NFC wildcard spots? We'll set the playoff table for you going into a weekend where the Commanders could all but clinch a playoff spot without even playing. We'll explain next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Let's take a look at the NFL standings heading into the weekend because we're only in week 14. There's a lot of football to be played, but the standings in terms of the playoff picture actually don't have a lot of wiggle room, frankly, in either conference. There's some pretty significant leads, which are... We're going to focus on the NFC because of the Commanders, but just to real quick say it, the Chiefs have clinched a playoff spot, as have the Bills. They're at 1-2 in the AFC. The Steelers are currently the third seed as the third division winner at the AFC North. The Texans are at 8-5 and should be in more trouble, except for the fact that nobody else in their division's any good either. The Chargers are 8-4. The Ravens are 8-5. The Broncos are 8-5. The next best team is the Colts at 6-7. And so, barring a total collapse down the stretch by either the Texans in that division or one of these other two teams, and a heck of a December by the Colts, it seems very unlikely that they are going to be able to catch them. The Dolphins sit at 5-7, and then you're already down at the Broncos, who are 4-8. So that's 3.5 games back of the final playoff spot. So that is where the AFC stands. On the NFC side, it's a similar story, Anthony. You have the Lions at 12-1, who have now clinched a playoff spot. The Eagles technically haven't clinched, but I believe can this weekend, as they sit at 10-2 as the 2 seed and the current NFC East champion. Seahawks are 7-5. The Falcons are 6-6. We'll circle back to those two. The Vikings are a wild card team at 10-2. Right now, the way that the standings sit, we'd actually get a rematch wild card weekend of a game this weekend, Vikings-Falcons. You'd have the Kirk Cousins Bowl. And the Vikings would have to go to Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The Packers, after last night's loss, are 9-4. They're in the 6th seed. And then Washington, who is sitting on a bye, is at 8-5. The next best team is the Buccaneers at 6-6, who are in a virtual tie with the Falcons. Atlanta currently has the head-to-head tiebreaker over Tampa. So they would be the NFC South champions, leaving the Bucs on the outside looking in. But if the Bucs finish with a better record than the Falcons, then they would get the NFC South spot, unless the Falcons go like 3-1 and the Commanders go 1-3. And by the way, that one loss/win isn't to each other when they play in Week 17. They're not really a threat to the Commanders. I guess the bigger threat would be Tampa, because they have a head-to-head loss against Tampa. But again, depending on what happens this weekend with the Buccaneers, they're one game behind Washington as is. So really, I think then you're getting down to the Cardinals, the Rams. They were also 6-6, but they're battling with the 7-5 Seahawks. And by the way, if the Seahawks beat the Cardinals this weekend, the Cardinals are basically 3 games back of Washington, because they have a head-to-head loss. They'd also be 3 games back virtually for the Seahawks in the division, and so they're all but out of it. The Rams are kind of, to me, the wild card here, because they're also 6-6, and we'll see, can they compete with the Seahawks for the division or close that gap down to Washington for that final wild card space. So it's not like Washington has it locked up by any stretch of the imagination, and after this weekend, they could have just a 1-game lead over, we'll call it NFC South 2, Tampa or Arizona, and NFC West 2, in either, Tampa or Atlanta, or LA or Arizona. But Washington is firmly in the driver's seat, sitting on 8 wins here. And then the question becomes, can they come up with Green Bay down the stretch, having a couple tough games? Because, yes, Washington has the Philly game, but they've also got New Orleans, Atlanta, and Dallas again, and those seem very, very winnable. Meanwhile, the Packers still have the Seahawks. They have the Saints, which is a primetime game. Then they're at Minnesota, and then they finish with the Bears. So we'll see about that. But it definitely feels like, if the Packers were to go 2-2 in those games and Washington go 3-1, then the 6th seed is not out of the question either. Unfortunately, if you're either 6 or 7, you wind up facing Detroit or Philadelphia. So that could be kind of rough. But I don't know. Sign me up. I would say kind of sign me up for a 3rd game with Philly. You just have the familiarity factor over Detroit, where it's totally new. But either one is going to be a tough task with how strong the top of the NFC is this year. And that's kind of where things sit right now.
Yeah, and they always say it is hard to beat a team 3 times. Not to say we're going to lose in our rematch. I hope we go out there, we win. But I would still rather not, have to go against one of those powerhouses of offenses.
Unfortunately, the math is that you're probably going to have to.
I know.
No, because I guess if you...
Packers.
Oh, I guess the Detroit is going to get the bye, though.
Yeah.
So I guess if you finish 6th,
Yeah, we finished.
you get Seattle theoretically, or the winner of the NFC West, which would be a long trip. So that part would stink. But definitely that's better than playing Philly.
Yeah. For sure.
What's funny is, like, if you beat Philly, you have a much greater chance of not playing them again. If you lose to Philly, well, then you can convince yourself they can't beat us 3 times. How about that for an optimist spin?
Hold on, say that one more time.
So if you beat Philly, your chances of being that 6th seed skyrocket.
Okay, yep.
Right? So you then could avoid them. If you lose to Philly, it's going to be hard to. I mean, I guess if they go 3-1 and the Packers go 2-2, and then it comes down to, I guess probably conference record, and Washington would have the better conference record. But if you wind up in the 7th seed, in part because you lose to Philly, then you get they can't beat us 3 times. Either way, you're winning.
Yep. I like the way you think, Greg.
You know me, famous optimist, always spinning things in a super positive direction, no matter what, at all times. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we had a fantastic conversation with the excellent Robert Mays, host of the Athletic Football Show on Take Command. We're going to let you hear some of what Robert had to say about the Commanders and where he sees them, and just how impressed he's been with Cliff Kingsbury and what they've done with this roster. Next, it's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Quick, Anthony, actually, let me check real quick before we let the folks hear this fantastic chat with the fantastic Robert Mays. Could I say fantastic more? Your driver has to make a few more deliveries on the way to your address. Earlier, it was giving me like you're 2 stops away, whatever. And they've dropped the number of stops away. You got to deliver more packages, but they're closer than the last time that I looked.
So, if you had to, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that they'll be delivered before 5:30?
I'm like a solid 4.5. Yeah, there's just like there's a lot of places to drop packages off around me, so it's like a few more stops. It's like okay, they're not far away. Like I don't want to walk outside, period, but I could walk to where the truck is based off the map on Amazon. And for those just tuning in, we are supposed to have props for our 5:30 segment today. Anthony has his because I made sure that it got delivered to his house, and it luckily showed up before he left for work. I am waiting for mine to show up here because I'm working from my home studio today, and we're tracking this throughout the show. So hopefully the props will show up, and then they will be visible to those that watch the show on YouTube at 5:30. And if for those that don't watch the show on YouTube or aren't going to be able to catch it, we'll make sure that the pictures and the video gets out there. So we just need to show up. Again, if you're an Amazon delivery driver listening, just keep it moving. Keep it moving. You might have the magic package. Okay. Robert Mays is magical. In fact, I embarrassed the hell out of him at the start of our chat on Take Command because I said I think he's the best podcast host in the NFL universe. I really do. I think Robert, who is the host of the Athletic Football Show, is so he has an ability to both like be in football nerd world who studies and watches film and all this stuff on his own, but is also very well connected in the league. He talks to people with frequency. It's why I like John Kime, frankly, locally. I think John does a lot of great work on his own, but he's also been around and is very connected and knows a lot of people, and he talks to people, and he John's product specifically with what he's doing with this podcast and everything, I think he really blends the knowledge and the insidership with his own knowledge of what you learn when you've been doing that for a long time. It's what I try to do on the show, and I don't think there's anybody better in the NFL universe at doing that than Robert Mays. And so I'm not good enough to know Robert for a couple years now, and it was great to use the bye week as an excuse to have him on, take a bigger picture view of the Commanders. We did some even bigger picture stuff at the start of the podcast, which you'd have to listen to by actually clicking on Take Command. But for this part of the show, got into some of the details of what Cliff Kingsbury is doing with this offense and how that compares contextually, or how that compares and is put in context to some other trends around the league. So here's part of our chat with Robert Mays, me, Logan, Robert on Take Command. Which kind of brings us to the one of the other things we want to talk about, Robert, which is how surprised are you that they're able to do this at all, considering the state of their roster? They cut Emmanuel Forbes last week. Now, all 4 of their previous first-round picks are gone. So, the last 5 years, the guy they drafted number 2 overall in this draft is the only first-rounder they have. They also, healthy scratch Fidarian Mathis, one of their second-round picks. They didn't have a second-rounder in one of those other drafts. So we're talking about an extreme, not only talent dearth, because you get your best players through the draft, but also then having to build it without the cheap labor that the NFL relies upon, relatively cheap for salary cap purposes. So, when we talk about them being able to elevate against some of these top 5 teams, obviously you think if they can execute a similar plan with better dudes in the future, that might solve that top 5 team problem. But also just, how, I guess also someone with your purview and your memory of recent memory of the league, can you think of any other examples that overachieve based off talent on this level that have dug themselves out of this kind of hole?
It's a great question. I mean, I think I think that Denver this year has done a very good job with the pieces that they have. And I think that the difference between them and Washington, in my opinion, is the individual talent along the offensive line is better for the Broncos than it is for Washington, right? Denver has a left tackle that they've paid. They have a right tackle that they paid in free agency. There's a veteran. Washington built its offensive line partially through free agency too. If you look at the resources spent on a Nick Allegretti and an Andrew Wiley versus what Ben Powers, Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, even Quinn Miners after his extension have been getting, it's a little bit different. So I think that their ability to hold up front is a little bit more notable. But from a pass catching perspective, they don't really have a lot of guys, and they've still been a pretty good offense. So I think that would be another recent example. But other than that, it would be hard to find a team playing at a top 5-ish sort of level that has as little proven talent on its offense as this. I think another possibly good example is what Green Bay was doing like last year. It was all these young receivers, all these unproven guys, and they were still playing at a top 5 level. The quarterback was obviously a veteran, even if we had never seen him before, but similar sort of thing. It's rooted in details. It's rooted in the job that Matt LaFleur did. And I think that Cliff Kingsbury is doing a similar quality sort of job this year.
Yeah, 100%. Like, those are really good examples. And it's interesting because it kind of goes back to that thing you talked about at the beginning of the show, which is just like, it's the details. It's understanding like kind of the culture and the coaching points and allowing the guys the opportunity to bring it to life. And I think that's the thing that I keep coming back to. It's like, whatever the plan is, it seems to be working because he knows Cliff and Joe Witt Jr., they know kind of where their weaknesses are. They call games accordingly. And it just is it's like intuitively well coached. And I think that's maybe the question for you is like, you've talked to Sean, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL. You've talked to a lot of dudes around the league that are really good coaches. Like, what makes those guys in your conversations with them such good coaches and such good communicators, such good teachers that allows them to elevate these situations? And again, it's a little bit like 50-50. It's got to be the right personnel, the right personalities, all that stuff's important. But what have you seen from those guys?
I've said this a bunch this season, and I think that because of where we are in the head coaching cycle and what this next crop is going to look like, and just the last few years, how we've picked over so many of the offensive-minded head coaches, and that cupboard is pretty bare right now. Are we going to try to find guys who maybe are a little bit more of these CEO types? And it's caused me to just think about the demands on being a head coach in the NFL specifically. And I've kind of in jest said this a bunch this year. It's a really hard job, right? It's a really hard job to be in charge of. Logan, what would you say? A head coach is probably the manager of 150 to 200 people when you consider the entire roster, the entire coaching staff, equipment staff, support staff, etc. So you're the manager of 200 or so people. The top 53 people on that list, and let's say a few of the coaching staff guys, are millionaires. So you are having to organize and manage 200 people, a quarter of which make millions of dollars a year, and you have to make them excited to come to work and slam their head against somebody else's 5 days a week for 20 weeks. That is a very, very, very difficult job. And I think that the two things that have to work in conjunction for you to be good at that, you have to have presence, right? That is the number one thing, just being a head coach in the NFL. When you stand in front of the room, you have to have a certain, even if it's not a dynamism about you, you have to have something compelling that the guys in that room are going to attach themselves to. But I also think when I've gotten to do this a little bit more and I've gotten deeper into my career, and I'll go back to a conversation I had with Dan Quinn this summer, something he said to me that I think is a good thing for a coach to say. I asked him what they were going to do defensively. Is this going to look like it looked like in Dallas, where you're playing all this man, you're doing all this stuff up front? And he said something that I thought is a perfect answer. He's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do because I've only had these guys for a week. And I think that the combination to me of having presence at the front of the room, being compelling, causing your guys to buy in that way, while also having the humility to ride the waves of an NFL season. The guys I've seen fail as NFL coaches that I know really well are the guys when you talk to them on August 1st and they think they know how the season's going to go. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They think they can see things that other people can't. And I think that is a mistake. I think being wired that way, unless you are truly like a visionary, I think that McVay is able to do that sometimes, where Sean's able to say, all right, I think this is what's coming around the bend for the league. And I think that has given him advantages in certain moments. But Sean, I think that there is still more of a humility to Sean than most people probably understand. So having those two things in equal parts, where I have this feel, this charisma, this presence about me, while also being able to understand I don't have all the answers and I'm willing to ride the ups and downs of the year. Those are the two things that I would probably say are the most important.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, it takes a special person to do that, and it's so hard as a coach and as a player to do that too. Because like you want to kind of, and you can probably speak to this too. You want to invest your time in the thing you think is going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like ideally you'd like to have an answer in August of saying like, this is the coverage. This is what we want to be installing. But then the understanding that we're going to install our stuff, but we're going to pick 3 of these things to be really good at. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of work, like you're saying. And I know Dan's got that. And I don't know, have you talked to Cliff? Does he understand that too? Or like that would be another kind of interesting thing because you've talked with him more than we have probably.
I mean, I've only had a couple conversations with Cliff in my life. I talked to him in Arizona a couple times, and I talked to him this summer. And I mean, if you've interacted with Cliff at all, he's chill as hell.
Yeah.
Cliff is just a very chilled out dude. And so I think that, yeah, there is like a level of humility to the way that he's approaching things. And I think that for offensive coaches, I just think it's about details. I think that becomes the most important part when you are the offensive coordinator. And I think too often as part of these discussions, and I've tried to like use this term as often as I can to illustrate what I'm talking about here. Play caller is important. Offensive architect is more important. What you're doing from Monday through Saturday is as important as the sequencing of the plays. So, I mean, people I think are misconstrued that. They think the guy calling the plays, that's what is the most important thing. Whoever the offensive architect is and how that offensive architecture gets built, that becomes the most important thing. And when I think about Washington this year, the offensive architecture is what I come back to. It's the intentionality behind the details on pretty much everything they're doing. You saw it from the beginning. And those are the good offenses. And like you guys have alluded to, where you start to see the gap is when the talent gap exists. And I think that's kind of where we are with this team. We know the details are going to be good, but when you get to those high leverage moments against really good teams, your number 2 receiver is a guy you signed off the street in August. Like that is still the reality of where this team is.
No, it's 100% true. And I think back to a pair of conversations I had, one with Sean and one with Kevin O'Connell when he was here. And, Sean would just say like, it's not about me. Like it's about these guys. Like he understands at a fundamental level, like you're only as good as your players, which means you could be as bad as your players if you do not have good players. And Kevin, I remember talking to him one year when one of the many years, unfortunately, that Jordan Reed was hurt. And he was basically like, right now, defensive coordinators get up in their meeting rooms and where they normally write the numbers of the dangerous guys, they don't write anybody. Or maybe they write like Chris Thompson's number. Like, watch out for him on 3rd down on option routes. And like, that was it. Like Kevin understood there's only so much he could scheme up. You give him Justin Jefferson and he's got the best offense in the league. And so I think there's amongst the best coaches. And I think Cliff has alluded to this in some of the press conference stuff this year that like, we're only as good as our players. And I got to make sure that our players, and even like some of the stuff with Terry this past week of like, some of these man-to-man situations, we're really struggling because we can't get Terry the football. So let's get Terry the ball. And they do in a bunch of key situations. They move him around in those specific spots. And all of a sudden the offense looks back like the offense again. So that was nice.
I've made this. I've had so many conversations about this year because I think that this season in particular has been a really telling example for this discussion specifically. Situation and how much it matters for quarterbacks or just for your offensive personnel, period. And the thing that I've landed on is that the right offensive architect, again, is a multiplier for your talent. So if you have somebody that's one of those guys, pick your number, you become, as an offense, 1.5 times better than your talent should be. And it can go the other way. Coming into the season, the Bears were supposed to have this great supporting cast. Well, if you have a multiplier to the negative direction, if it's negative 1.5 times as good as you're supposed to be, then you have a situation in the middle of the year where Washington's offense looks like it does and the Bears' offense looks like it does. The problem is 1.5 times 0 is still 0. So if you have no talent, the multiplier can only take you so far. So talent is part of this equation. But in the right circumstances, the correct offensive coaching staff, the correct offensive architecture can elevate that talent. And I think that Washington arguably is the best example of that from the entire league this season.
Yeah, and so, for a lot of the people listening, like, do you have an example of what a offensive architect, like something that would characterize a good offensive architect? Because I think people think of play callers as like this dynamic, he always dials up the right thing. He always does this and that. But in reality, like that's, you put the game plan in on Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like they do it on Tuesday. And so like, it's really just making sure that architecture is in the right space. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm trying to think about examples in my own career. Like Kyle's architecture is way different than Sean's. It's similar, but like it's going to build different in a different way. And that's different than, the guy that I had when I was in Atlanta, Sark, right? So do you have a good example of, again, you said details, maybe some specific examples that people can kind of say, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Like this is good architecture as opposed to negative architecture or whatever.
I think the Rams are probably the first place I would go just because I think it's the most obvious. And if you look at like the 2023 Rams specifically, and you look at some of the things that they were doing with like Puka Nacua, okay? So this is a team that had switched to be more of a duo-centric run team last year compared to being an outside zone team or a mid-zone team for a good chunk of Sean's career. And so they have these downhill duo runs. And for people who don't know what that is, it's just a set of double teams up front. So it's a downhill kind of gap scheme run. And what they would do is they would have Puka Nacua come in motion and insert on some of those runs almost as a de facto tight end. So that's kind of the baseline of their run game. Well, okay, if that's the baseline of our run game, how do we build off of that? And then you would have plays where he would come in motion, insert through the C gap, and run a corner route. So it's just about building on the central ideas that you have. Washington, I'm trying to think of the game that this happened, but there was a stretch where they were doing a lot of this 21 pony personnel stuff, and there was like a lead up run where the one back would be the lead blocker for the other in some of those looks. And so they did that at one point, and then they threw a screen back the other way. So I think it's just about building on your central ideas and having kind of additive answers on top of those things, combined with just consistently using details to make things easier. Like the double chip stuff I would keep coming back to with Washington, where it's just like every time we're going to have somebody release into the flat, we're going to make sure that he's helping one of our tackles on an edge rusher. So I think it's building on ideas and having everything be cohesive while also having the right sort of details attached to that to just consistently be making things as easy as you can on your guys.
Yeah. I think I'm really glad you articulated it that way because, again, it's not, people think it's the call. It's like the call on the day. But if the call is like in isolation, like a really good play, but it doesn't fit with the foundational pieces of your offense, So, for example, like you're predominantly a 21 personnel team, but you got this really sick pass out of 11 and you want to spread everybody out, but it doesn't really marry with the rest of your offense. Like it just doesn't work, And so I think that's something I like the example of the Puka Nacua thing there. And it's cool because, again, like it just allows you to kind of build a bigger building, and it's fun to see offenses evolve like Sean's offense or Ben Johnson's offense in Detroit. Like you don't run all these trick plays year one, you build to that moment off of the other stuff you've put in. And so, I really like that, the way you articulated that.
I think that the thing I always come back to, somebody asked me this yesterday, when you're watching an NFL game, what are you watching? And I always come back to, what is the intention of the play? Like, what are you trying to accomplish based on what you're putting out there? And you can take this a bunch of different directions. Okay. Buffalo, for example, this year. Buffalo has run more plays with 6 offensive linemen on the field than any team in the NFL. That aligns with their ability to run the ball on their terms now in ways they couldn't 3 or 4 years ago. But the other thing that Buffalo does out of those looks, they'll sling it around the yard because they're in base defense. So when you're putting certain position groups, certain personnel groupings, certain alignments of players, when you're using certain motions, what is the intention behind those things? And I think that the best offenses in the league, when you really study them, the intention is obvious. You know what they're trying to accomplish based on all the details of the play. And I think that Washington is a very good example of that this year.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Robert Mays, host of the Athletic Football Show. He and Derek Klassen doing a great job reviewing the games every week, previewing every week, and then Robert typically does some kind of special project in the middle of the week. I know you looked at a lot of the contenders this week, did a special kind of report, if you will, on the disappearance of the shutdown corner. Hopefully we have the reappearance of one here in Washington. We'll see how good his hamstring's good to go. But that was a fun listen as well. So check out the Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcast. Robert, this was great, dude. Always a pleasure. And hopefully next time we see you, it's not fresh off a red eye.
Anytime, guys. Good to see you.
Robert Mays, everybody, from the Athletic Football Show, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, you can listen to Take Command wherever you get your podcasts. Anthony, pop quiz. What else can people listen to wherever they get their podcasts?
The free Odyssey app?
No. I know were you working on something? Did you not hear the question? The free Odyssey app is a way that people can listen to podcasts. That wasn't the question. The question was, what else besides Robert's show and the podcast that I do with Logan can people get wherever they get their podcasts? Come on, it's not a trick question.
Where else can they?
What else? What, Anthony? They can get this show.
Oh, the radio.
The point
47.
is that the Hoffman show, we put it. You're the one who does this. We put it in podcast form, and then you can listen to it on demand anytime you want, anywhere you want in the whole world.
But yeah, Spotify, Apple Music. Yeah.
It wasn't a where question. It was a what question.
Of this show.
Yeah. You got it.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, the worst podcast promo in the history of radio. When we get back, not my beat time. Damon Amendolara, our old pal, used to come on with us all the time. But we had to call DA up here in the middle of football season and say, hey, let's talk a little college ball. Championship weekend. What game this weekend could really throw the committee for a loop? And is this whole 12-team playoff thing working? We talk about it with DA next on The Hoffman Show.
It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Be joined in 30 seconds by Damon Amendolara from SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio. Talk a little college football playoff because that's today's top story. Commanders are on a bye. Championship weekend in college football. But my guy James is listening, Anthony. And right before the break, there was a little confusion between the two of us. That resulted in a terrible promo for our podcast, which you should subscribe to and listen to it so you don't miss any part of the show. Because you can listen anytime, anywhere, because it's a podcast, and you can get it on any platform that you get your podcast. And James said, "I'm with Ant." That was confusing.
See?
And I said, that doesn't reflect well on you.
Oh.
Nothing like a Savage Friday. All right, let's get DA on the horn.
Today's top story. Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
It's our pleasure to welcome back to the show our guy Damon Amendolara, SiriusXM. He does mornings. It's called the DA Show. He comes on with us all the time. We've had all this NFL stuff, and DA, we could talk plenty NFL, but I wanted to talk to you about college football, my friend. That's a real throwback for us. Back to
I love it.
The days when I used to care about college football a lot more. Back in those days, one of the things that used to drive me nuts, Damon, was like you'd have these really great teams that get left out of the chance to win a championship. BCS days, you had two. You have third team that would have a legitimate gripe, sometimes fourth and fifth team. Then you had four, and it's like, hey, that fifth team, is it really that much worse than the fourth team? Do you feel like with the current state of the college football playoff in this year one of a 12-team system that you are getting at least a fight over teams that, yeah, sure, you're always going to have a limit, and thus the team that's left out is going to be mad, but that at least the right teams are fighting versus worthy, championship contenders being left out?
Well, if you're asking me whether, Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, do they all have arguments to be in or arguments out? I mean, I'm not here for hearing the swan songs or the sob songs rather of Ole Miss, of South Carolina, of Miami. I mean, when you have a door that's been thrown open to 12 teams, I really don't want to hear about how you got screwed, because once upon a time, as you mentioned, it was a 4-team playoff as of last year. Before that, it was a 2-team playoff. Before that, we voted on this stuff. So I'm sorry for the Miamis of the world, the Ole Misses, everybody's saying they got screwed this or that. I just don't have much patience for it, because it's never been easier. We will have an Indiana team whose best win is what? Automatically into the playoff. For what reason? They play in a good conference. They haven't beat anybody. You're talking about Iowa State and Arizona State, who have strength of schedules in the 50s and 60s. Somebody's going to get in. It has never been easier to get into the playoff. And so I don't think I have any sympathy for the teams that were left out.
Yeah, and that's why I love it. It's like, yeah, you know what? If you got a complaint, you should have won more games. And like before, the way it used to be set up was, hey, you have a complaint. Well, actually, that's a pretty good complaint. You got a point there. Whatever, insert team here. And the fact that now it's just like, yeah, you should have won more. And like, sorry, sucks. I think that's actually what the playoff should be. So now we head into conference championship weekend with those final spots on the line. Is there any one of these conference title games that you think is the most interesting? Which one are you looking most forward to watching, whether it's one of the ones tonight or the plethora of games tomorrow?
It's the Big Ten, because I think Oregon's the best team of the country. Their record would suggest it. Their ranking would suggest it. But we really don't know if Oregon's a great team. I had Rick Neuheisel joined me on the show yesterday, and Rick coached in the Pac-12. He coached at Colorado and UCLA. And I said, I think Oregon's great, but do we learn that coming up on Saturday? And he goes, I'm not sure great is ever going to be in college football again, just because of the way the sport is built. And so I think this is an interesting test, because if Oregon beats up on Penn State, and the line's not huge, I think it's 3.5. Oregon's favored by 3.5. If they do beat up on the Nittany Lions by 3 touchdowns, I think it's the closest thing we have to a great team. If they don't, and maybe Penn State flips the upset, then you really are talking about a conference, a playoff that just has a bunch of good teams, none elite. And I think for Penn State, this has been their never-ending search through the wilderness of credibility and of respect, because they can never beat Ohio State. They can never beat Michigan. They didn't do it again this year, but they have a chance to win a Big Ten. And if they do win a Big Ten, I think that's significant, and I think it makes them pretty good, although I'm not convinced they're great either. So it's a battle of credibility in the Big Ten, and I think it should teach us something about one of the two schools, although, again, I'm not necessarily certain.
Yeah, it does feel, I mean, on top of that, just the weirdness of like, oh yeah, the Big Ten title game played at Lucas Oil Stadium between Penn State and Oregon. All right. Okay then. Yeah.
Awkward.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Which game or what result in one of these games do you think creates the biggest headache for the committee?
It's Clemson if they pull the upset in SMU, because everybody else is basically in. I mean, you're talking about both Big Ten schools are automatically in, both SEC schools automatically in. We know the Big 12 is only going to get the winner into this thing. And then that leaves us with the ACC. And the ACC is probably a one-bid league, but an upset of SMU could potentially make it a little sticky for the committee. I doubt that it does. My guess is it's also a one-bid league. And so either SMU is in or Clemson is in, and then they're going to put a 3-loss Alabama team into the at-large spot. But there is a plausibility that if it's a great game, if it's a great Clemson win and it's double overtime or whatever that looks like, 42-41, and you go, how do you leave SMU out? Then there's a debate with that last spot. But probably all of the spaces have been taken. Probably there is nobody that can play themselves into this thing as an at-large. It looks like we kind of have our multi-bid leagues, our single-bid leagues, and that's just the way it's going to be no matter who wins.
SiriusXM, Mad Dog Radio. You can catch Damon Amendolara weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on the DA show. The Georgia-Texas game. I think if we talked about this game at the beginning of the year, it's like, oh, we could have a couple first-round picks at quarterback. That doesn't necessarily look to be the case with the way the two quarterbacks have played this year. It's a weird quarterback draft, as we'll obviously be getting to when we get into January, February, and on through the next spring. But what do these teams do really well? And are these quarterbacks good enough to be national championship quarterbacks at the college level, even if we're not looking at them as pro prospects, maybe in the same way we did coming into the season?
Well, Carson Beck has been a headache all season long. There were big expectations for him. Maybe he would be a top-end quarterback, and he just has not looked it for most of this season. There are throws. There were moments in that crazy Georgia Tech game last weekend, which was clearly one of the best games of the year. We were like, oh, there it is. But by and large, it's hard to watch Carson Beck. And, the Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning thing bubbled throughout the season, whether Quinn Ewers really was deserving of QB1 at Texas. So, yeah, there's question marks about both those guys. But the fact of the matter is, no matter what the Big Ten would like you to believe, and they're lucky that Oregon's in the conference this year because it makes them look a lot better than they really are, or at least than they would have been without the Oregon, Washington, West Coast additions. The SEC is the conference, and I know that rubs a lot of non-SEC fans the wrong way. But when you look at the very best schools and the very best conference top to bottom and the elite of the elite, yeah, Georgia's got 2 losses, and yeah, maybe the SEC likes to make excuses. Hey, we're eating ourselves, we're cannibalizing ourselves. But at the end of the day, these are the best football teams, top to bottom. And Georgia, Texas, and I don't love the idea that now the SEC has a Texas and Oklahoma, because I think it continues to water down the magic of the actual conferences. I do think that this matchup presents 2 great teams, and this would be the other must-watch conference championship game aside from the Big Ten because of how elite both schools are. But I think that in this game, there's a lot of question about the 2 quarterbacks in crunch time and a question mark about Texas. We think they're pretty good, but what you got to try to find the Texas best win here. What's the best win? And so this would be it, but we'll see if Texas can get it done.
2024 college football, the year of but. That's what I'm getting at here, Damon. Is that
I know.
This is the year of the but?
And Rick Neuheisel asked me, he goes, so have you been into college football this season? And I said, He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, the 12-team playoff is great because it has certainly floated a lot of interest in the league, or I should say in the playoff, from a lot of leagues and teams that could never have dreamt about getting in there before. I said, but it feels a lot like the NFL now, where 8-3, gets you into the playoff, into the postseason. So it's like, is that a great team? Or you just kind of have to turn it on when the playoffs begin. And I do think that has ruined the previous magic of, you got to be dominant and damn near perfect to make your way to a national championship. And now you throw up your shoulders and go, there's just, in NFL parlance, the old NFL parlance, there's a lot of 10-6s, or a lot of 10-6 teams. That's good. Are they great? A 10-6 team is going to win a championship probably. That's why it's felt a little weird, kind of muddling through this college football season.
Yeah, at the same time, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when there's a dominant, maybe top 2 teams that do run the table, and they're just sitting there as the 1 and 2 seed. And they still have to win the playoff, but that's the case for, I don't know, say a 15-1 Patriots team or an 18-1 Patriots team that didn't win the Super Bowl, for instance. Cam Newton and that Carolina team in 2015, like they lost one game, they still lost the Super Bowl. So there is that element, but I'm curious to see how it feels in college football if there's a dominant team or 2 teams, and is this just a watered down year anyway? Because I don't think any of these teams have lost extra games, been okay with it because of the system. Like they're not that good. And maybe there's other structural things that impact that just wind up coinciding with this 12-team playoffs, and thus it feels like the year of but.
Yes and no. I think from the reality of college football today, it's so much harder to build your perfect teams, your 12-0s, your 11-1s, your 13-0s, because the transfer portal and NIL did what it was intended to do, and that was to flatten out the talent. And so now if you don't like your playing situation as the backup at Ohio State, you're leaving to go to Syracuse to play quarterback, and Kyle McCord made Syracuse a really good 9-3 team. And had he stayed at Ohio State, maybe it does make them an even a more elite program. And that talent has dispersed. And so there is just by nature going to be a lot less greatness. At the same time, and I know people love the playoff, Indiana losing to Ohio State should have been an elimination game. You should have had to win that game to get into the tournament. And Ohio State losing to Michigan should have been an elimination game. You can't lose to an unranked team 13-10 at home in the final regular season week and still go to the playoffs. You should not be playing for a championship. I mean, Ohio State fans, some of them hope that they lose so that Ryan Day gets fired. Is that really the team you want representing a potential national champion? So that's where I think that 12 ended up being too much. I always advocated for 6 or 8. I felt like if you had the automatic
felt right
bids,
to me. Yeah.
If you had the 5 power conferences, and now it's 4, but if you had the 5, a group of 5 qualifier, and then 2 wild cards, I felt like, there you go. That's good. That would be the 8. Now it'd be your 4 power conferences, a group of 5, and 3 wild cards, and that could include Notre Dame. That feels fair as well. But yeah, once you start going 12, or maybe some people talking about 16 ultimately, it doesn't allow for what used to be the magic of elimination games, basically high leverage games in college football's regular season.
No, totally tracks. Damon Amendolara, the DA show, 6 to 9 a.m. on SiriusXM Mad Dog Radio. Good to have you back on the show, my friend.
Good to be here, Hoff. Good to be here. And let me just go back to the quarterback situation you mentioned. This year's quarterback draft class is also a big Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, likely the 2 QBs top off the board, which is why a team like the New York Giants last year completely screwed themselves by winning those stupid games with Tommy DeVito. It took them out of Jaden Daniels and Drake May. And now, what's the prize? It's a booby prize. You've got to hope that Shedeur or Cam Ward is your solution, when last year you really had the solution and you won too many games, so you screwed yourself.
They played Tommy DeVito. What were they supposed to do?
Well, I don't know. Play the punter?
I mean, how much? Never mind. I'm not going to do that. Tommy DeVito. David Amendolara, especially not with a fellow Italian here on the show. David Amendolara, everybody. All right, that's Damon Amendolara with us here on the Hoffman Show. One more college football topic to be discussed / to be decided, and it might very well be decided tonight, the Heisman race. Anthony and I will handicap that next. Then coming up at 5:30, we go around the NFL, possibly in Groucho Marx silly glasses. It's if you don't know the bit by now, we'll explain. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
This is
We go around the NFL coming up at 5:30. Check the Amazon packages. See if our Competition Wednesday costume is going to show up. Anthony, it's coming down to the wire. It is coming down to the absolute wire. I think the truck is like unloading the packages. So, seems unlikely, but there's still a chance. So you're staying.
Still a slim chance.
There's a chance. We had a false alarm that the Groucho Marx glasses had shown up because I got a package alert and I knew that this package was close. But Anthony, if I do not have this package at 5:30 and thus I'm able to reveal or we're able to do the picks in our costumes, I will reveal the other package I got because it is also show adjacent.
Ooh. I don't know what this is.
You don't. I did reference it earlier in the week.
Nope.
5:30. Stay tuned. Now we got him. We got him. There's everyone's staying tuned no matter what. So we will let you know one or two secrets coming up at 5:30. But tonight, Boise State plays in their final, I guess, regular season game, I guess we call it, because that's how silly college football is. We're not technically in the postseason yet, but it is the championship game tonight for Boise State in the Mountain West, and it is basically a two-horse race for Heisman. It is Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty, who, by the way, was mocked to Washington in Dane Brugler's mock draft 1.0 in The Athletic. And Travis Hunter, the all-everything, play-every-snap DB wide receiver for Deion Sanders at Colorado. Anthony, do you have a strong preference either way? Do you have strong feelings either way on who you think should win the Heisman? And then we can explain, if we need to, why this is basically a two-horse race between a wide receiver DB combo and a running back for an award that has become very quarterback heavy as of late.
It has become quarterback heavy, but I think we've seen running backs like Ashton Jeanty go out and either compete for the Heisman or win the Heisman. Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, those immediately come to mind. We've never seen a Travis Hunter, especially the manner in which he played both sides of the ball almost every snap. Like, I think if you're going out there and performing at the level and against the level that a level of competition that he was competing against and performing, that's who I more so tend to lean towards, just because it sort of kind of shows me like he's an Iron Man at the end of the day. Like,
yeah, it's what he's doing is nuts. Crazy. And it's not like he's having it's not like he's just doing it. He's doing it at an extremely high level. Let me pull up. I just had Jeanty's stats up. Let me pull up Travis Hunter. Or actually, it's not even wanting to pull up Travis Hunter's stats. It's wanting to pull up the college football season leader stats. Because Travis Hunter is, where'd it go? Okay, give me receiver. There we go. He is 5th in college football in receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
He's second in receiving touchdown.
He's 1,152 yards on 92 catches. The 92 catches is also good for 5th. So he's 5th in yards, 5th in catches. Yeah, as you said, he is 2nd in touchdowns. He's got 14, so he shows up majorly in the red zone. And it's not like Colorado's defense is awesome, but that's fine. He has played spectacularly on that side of the ball in obviously a season that was under a ton of pressure for Colorado because of how it fell apart for them last year. And he and Shador and everybody has pulled that thing together out in Colorado, and congrats to them. They'll go to a nice bowl game and off they'll go to the NFL, and we'll see if Deion follows them. Seems unlikely probably because they just got another great quarterback commit. I believe it was a quarter. Yeah, they did get a QB. I was like, did they get a quarterback or did they just get a great guy? But Deion's still recruiting. He's still out on the trail recruiting. But let me give you a counter argument. And by the way, Travis Hunter's going to win the Heisman. He's at FanDuel minus 4,000 to win. Jeanty is plus 1,200 as the next guy up. With that said, Ashton Jeanty at Colorado this year, at Boise State this year, has 2,288 yards rushing. So a 2,200-yard back in college. That is almost 600 yards more than the next best guy. He also has 18 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown, which is not a bunch, but I do think it's worth mentioning that he's a 3-down guy. And last year, we talk about his pro prospects, last year he caught 43 balls for 560 yards, 5 touchdowns. He averaged a 13-2 a catch last year. So when I look at him from a scouting perspective, I am hella intrigued by that. When I look at it from a Heisman perspective, obviously him as a receiver is less interesting this year because he just didn't do it. He was too busy running over everyone. But I think the final chance for him is tonight because he's kind of only had one quote-unquote bad game, really one underutilized game, and that was against UNLV, he had one underutilized game, but that was because they won 56-14. He only had 11 carries for 127 yards. Basically, every other game this year, he's over $150, except for San Diego State, he was 149, with the exception of the UNLV game. 33 carries, 128 yards, only 3.9 a carry. That was the only team that kind of bottled him up, was UNLV. And that's who he faces tonight. And so if he goes out and pushes them towards the college football playoff with a 250-yard performance, do you think he's got a shot?
He definitely has a shot.
Based off those odds that I read from FanDuel and floating around the internet, a couple others. Hey, those are sure. That's if you're getting Travis Hunter at minus 4,000, he's minus 6,000 other places. That's how big of a favorite he is.
But he's also just, I think when you include the social media aspect, the fact he plays for Dion, like all the extra stuff, I think that adds to why Vegas thinks, Travis will be the odds-on favorite or should be the odds-on favorite. I think Cincy, though,
yeah,
his numbers are crazy, man. Crazy.
It definitely is. Is this the, let's see. Oh, nope, never mind. Nope. I thought we might have Juan Soto news. Nope, it was a hockey deal. I saw Rangers and I was like, nope, it's a hockey deal. It is an 8-year extension, making him the highest paid for Igor Shesterkin, the goaltender for the Rangers, the New York Rangers, not the Texas Rangers, not the baseball ones. 8-year extension, highest paid goalie in NHL history for ESPN. Is that a package delivery? Hold on now. Am I going to have to make a run for it? Am I going to have to?
So.
Am I going to have? Nope, not. It doesn't say delivered.
This isn't the life we deserve, man.
You're the next stop, it said, for the better part of 45 minutes. Okay, well, Anthony and I are going to decide whether Anthony's going to wear his disguise alone and I'll wear mine on Monday. We'll sort this out. But I guess I'll reveal the other thing. And I will say the other thing is something that people can also get. I mean, I guess technically you could get the Groucho Marx glasses. Anyway, we're going to go around the NFL and do other nonsense. That'll be fun on a Friday next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live on the free Odyssey app. And we are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where Anthony Haney is paying off his debt from Competition Wednesday. My guy has got his Groucho Marx glasses on. Oh, man, your light is really just being a pain in the butt the past couple of days. It's flickering all over the place. Can't have that happening. But whatever. Especially when you look like that. Anthony has his Groucho Marx glasses on, with the nose, the mustache, and he also is wearing. Is that a Nationals fedora to go with it?
Yes, it is, sir.
Nice. It looks fantastic.
And I have my mail as well.
You have. I'm sorry. You have what now?
I have mail.
You have mail.
I look like a mailman.
Oh. Is that what your mailman looks like?
Let me not show my address.
Yeah. Let's definitely not. Okay. So, Anthony, are you just is this is you paying off the bet? I guess I have to wear mine on Monday when we go around the league.
Yes.
Or
sir.
do I just save it? Maybe I'll save mine for Wednesday. Maybe I'll save mine for Competition Wednesday on Wednesday. I actually think that's the next best segment for me to do this. Since after scrambling to have the brilliant idea to send them separately to make sure that, hey, maybe Anthony will get his, or I'll get mine, but Anthony won't get his. Of course, Anthony got his package before he left for work. I did not get mine. What I did get, though, Anthony, is the brand new Take Command merch.
Oh, you said it earlier this week.
I sure did. So this, if you're watching on YouTube right now, Anthony, is this in frame? Because I can't see. I'm blocking my own vision.
So you know how YouTube is delayed, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you could see it if you looked at the computer. The computer is live.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely taking up my entire screen right now. This is the new Take Command t-shirt, which is available from Breaking Tea. If you would like a discount on this t-shirt and you are a listener to Take Command, and I don't know why you'd want the discount on the t-shirt. I don't know why you'd want the t-shirt if you were to Take Command listener. You can go to hoffmanshow.com/survey. We have an audience survey up, and we would love to hear from you on what you think of the show. So if you can go ahead and do that, or if you just want to, you're like, I don't want to take a survey, I'll pay full price. That's fine. Go to Breaking Tea, search the Take Command in the 106.7 The Fan store, and there it is. And you can get a hoodie version. And Anthony, what do you think? Gotta hold it back up. Can you describe it for the people?
So there's a football with headphones.
Yep.
And then there is a take at the top and a command at the bottom. And yeah, it's nice.
It's burgundy. It's gold.
Yep.
And I'm gonna wear it.
Baby.
I'm gonna wear it as a cape. Actually, it kind of looks a little too Little Red Riding Hood for me. So we're just gonna I will say this does look like a kind of a small medium. I might be in a medium situation, and I should have gotten the large. Living life between two sizes, not the best. But what can you do? All right. What you can do is you can pick football games because that's what we're supposed to do this segment. All right, it's time to go around the NFL. Anthony, where are we at in terms of our records going into this weekend? And you can chalk one up for me last night. I did it, Anthony. I hit the split. I got Detroit on the money line. But I also got Green Bay plus 3.5. Of course, I don't bet any real money because the second I do, I'll start losing. Instead, I just have overwhelming amounts of pride in how well I've picked football games. I picked the plus 3.5 Green Bay on the First Impression Selection show that I do Monday on YouTube. I picked the Lions yesterday on this show. Anthony picked the Packers. He almost talked me into it, but I resisted. So where are our records as we preview the rest of the weekend?
So if we include Thursday Night Football, Mr. Craig Hoffman, you
Yep.
have a 5-game lead over me. You are sitting at 133-59, and I'm sitting at 128-64.
I will say, I feel like that's the closest you've been in years of doing this. Like we're in December, and Anthony's within striking distance.
Yes,
I'm one bad week and him having one good week away, as opposed to him having already had the bad week that puts him double-digit games down. So he's within 5.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what I can do this week. And let's run through fairly quickly here a craptastic 1 o'clock slate. This 1 o'clock slate is so infuriating Because if you are a football fan who's like, oh, my team's on a bye, I'm going to fire up Red Zone and I'm going to watch a 1 o'clock slate where things get crazy and it's between good teams and the results matter. This 1 o'clock slate's not for you. Jags and Titans gets us started. Yeah, Jags and Titans. Mac Jones versus Will Levis. Yay. Titans are 3.5-point favorites in this game. They are at home. They just got absolutely dump trucked by Washington last week. The week after, they beat their division-leading Houston Texans. Mac Jones brought the Jags back late in that game last week and then came up just short, but it wasn't like they were actually good. They just kind of made a couple plays and it worked out. Titans? Because then I don't have to pick Mac Jones on the road?
You're going with the Titans?
Sure.
I think I'm going to follow suit, Craig. I'm going to go with the home team. Also, Will Levis is playing a little bit better.
Yeah, he played better than his numbers last week because he had a bunch of drops, but he also did throw a bunch of balls at dudes' feet. He's not good. Jets, and he also missed some dudes. Jets and Dolphins. Dolphins 6-point favorites at home. 1, 2, 3. Dolphins. Again, just for fantasy purposes, Breece Hall out for New York. And also, if you're, for some reason, considering sitting like Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and any of them dudes, Sauce Gardner's out for New York as well, as is CJ Mosley. He got put on IR. Falcons and Vikings, the one good game in the 1 o'clock window, the Kirk Cousins Bowl. Minnesota is 6-point favorites at home. They know Cousins well. Flores has been turning up the heat. They the defense lulled a little bit for Minnesota earlier in the season, despite the fact they were able to overcome it because their offense played really well. Defense is back cooking. Offense is still offensing. The Falcons' offense sometimes is offensive. Sometimes it's okay. I mean, Kirk still has 3,000 yards this season. NFL's wild, man. I'm going to take Minnesota here. The picking is not hard, but I do think that this game could be close because some of the stuff that Atlanta does well offensively, some of their outside zone running, things like that, are things that Minnesota has struggled at times with. Also, Anthony, I've been looking at my screen, and then I looked down and saw you and forgot how ridiculous you looked for a second. And man, you look spectacular with this disguise on.
Does the hat really add?
The hat really adds. Honestly, I think I might have that hat somewhere in my house, and now I want to also wear that hat when I wear this stupid disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going with the Vikings.
Yeah.
I, too, am going with the Vikings. I don't have faith in the Falcons.
I don't either.
Especially Kurt. Not right now.
No. But then again, they've been super volatile, and they were down last week, so they'll probably put up 35 this week. Saints and Giants. The Saints are 5.5-point favorites over New York. New York likely or could be without Malik Neighbors in this game. They're starting Drew Lock at quarterback. The Saints don't have Taysom Hill. I'm not going to do 1, 2, 3 on this game because I think we're going to agree. I'm doing 1, 2, 3 on this game because I don't think it's worth talking about. 1, 2, 3, Saints. Okay, all right, we do agree. Panthers and Eagles. This line is up to 13.5. 13.5. Oh. That said, the Panthers have been plucky. They have continued to just fight and fight and fight. And Bryce Young suddenly has actually played better than C.J. Stroud over the last couple of weeks, if not 2 months, since he got inserted back into the lineup. That said, the Eagles are absolutely steamrolling people. One thing that they have done a good job of, amongst others offensively, like obviously they just feed Saquon until eventually he busts a 60-yarder because their offensive line is so physical that eventually it will happen. They've also been pretty good with the ball this year. Jalen had some interception and fumble problems last year, and that contributed to their demise in December. And I think it is worth remembering this team did fall apart in December last year. But Hurts, 14 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions on the year. So I think if they hold on to the ball, they'll be just fine. They're at home. I don't think Carolina challenges them in any meaningful way, but I do anticipate this being a game that Carolina can cover at 13.5.
Yeah, 13.5. Is a crazy number. I don't know if I had them. And no, I think you took them.
I took them in competition Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because it's 13.5.
Yeah. I think the Eagles are going to steamroll these guys.
There's a chance.
I think Saquon is going to go out there and continue to add to his MVP campaign. To be
He's
honest,
my favorite right now. I'd say he's the most important player to one of the best teams in the league. So I would give it to Saquon. All right, last two games in the 1 o'clock window. Browns and Steelers. They played a couple weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. It did not go well for Pittsburgh after they were riding high out that win against Baltimore, and then all of a sudden they go into Cleveland and not good. Jameis coming off of one of the wildest games that a quarterback has ever had in the history of the league. Highest combined total of passing and interception yardage. So Browns 3-9 on the season going into Pittsburgh, who's 6.5-point favorites. Give me Pittsburgh for the win here. I think they want revenge. I think that they will get after Jameis, and I think that when you introduce that amount of wildness into a Jameis game, it tends to not bend in Jameis's direction.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Steelers as well. But, man, if the Browns go out here and do it again, Craig.
It'll make me feel different about the Steelers, that's for sure. But the AFC North is wacky, which is why, by the way, it's been fun. I don't know, did you watch Hard Knocks the other night?
I haven't watched it yet. I heard it's good, though.
It's good. It's good. It's different. I think I like the one team better, but considering they went for the division thing, I like the way that they pieced it together. Raiders and Buccaneers. Bucks 6.5-point favorites over Las Vegas. 1, 2, 3. Bucks. Okay. The 1 o'clock window, poopsie. The 4 o'clock window and the primetime games, at least the Sunday nighter, those games are good. We'll talk about them in a little more depth next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 30 seconds, we get to the 4 o'clock window in the primetime games. We go around the NFL. Anthony, we did get some comments in the YouTube chat on your get-up. Someone said, yo, Anthony, you have to look up the Humpty Hump. And if you
I have to look up who?
The Humpty Hump, you know that the throwback, the old school hip-hop song?
Oh, yeah.
You definitely look straight out of the music video right now. It's I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
oh wow,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. So if you're wondering, if you're driving around wondering what does Anthony look like, one, you can just go to YouTube at the Team 980 and you can see for yourself. It's available on demand, so you can scroll back and check it out if you're driving right now and want to check it out when you get home, or just Google Humpty Hump music video, and that's what Anthony looks like right now. Okay. Game of the week. The CBS has it, and this is the 4:05 game, and then there's 2 games on Fox at 4:25. CBS 4:25 has Seahawks and Cardinals, a game of probably the most important game of the weekend to the Commanders, Anthony. If Seattle wins this game, they basically push the Cardinals into for sure wild card status. They would do so at 6-7. And that is a 3-game lead in reality for Washington. They'd be 2 up in record plus have the tiebreaker. So if they finish tied, obviously Washington would be good. That said, Arizona's favored by 2.5 at home. And these two teams matched up a couple weeks ago. Seattle got the win. Cardinals coming off a disappointing outing last weekend. Who you got?
This one's tough. I think who's the home team?
Arizona.
Yeah, I think I was going to go with Arizona. I think the Seahawks definitely came back, walked down the Jets. I salute them for that. But I think this is a game where the Cardinals have to go out there, defend home field, and, it's a divisional game. It's tough.
It's a divisional game. It is really tough. I'm really torn on this. Because, in part, because I don't trust either of these two teams. Just when you think the Seahawks, we got them figured out, like they go sideways. Also, it's worth saying, the play before Leonard Williams has the pick 6 last week. The play before, Aaron Rodgers misses a receiver wide open in the end zone.
Yeah.
Because Aaron Rodgers is bad at football. And if he hits that pass, they are up 28-0 on Seattle.
0.
Instead, on the next play, Leonard Williams drops out in a zone blitz situation as a defensive tackle, tips and then catches a ball at the 8-yard line and runs 92 yards the other way. And the game goes from 28-0 to 21-7 like that.
Just like
that is how close that game was to, for all intents and purposes, being over. So I know Arizona's only so good. They need this game. I think they're going to get it. I'm going to go Arizona. I don't feel good about it. I think I picked Seattle in competition Wednesday, but I think I'm going to go Arizona straight up here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cards as well. The Seahawks just get off to such slow starts, man. Like, it's so hard to trust them. I'm going with the Cards.
All right, Bills and Rams. Buffalo, merely a 3.5-point favorite at L.A., which I think is interesting because Buffalo's just steamrolling people. The Rams are very up and down, hard to trust. And even though it's a long trip, it's not like it's a road game for Buffalo outside of the travel. That stadium, SoFi, is going to be Bills Mafia West. Like, there's not going to be a Rams fan there. Stafford and them are going to have to be on the silent count, something they're very used to at home. But, like, seriously, that place is going to be a Bills home game. So I'm a little leery of the line, if I'm being honest, because what do we say every single week? Hey, the Bills are going to be the best team in football, and they're going to look like the best team in football until the week where they trip over themselves and fall flat on their face, and we all go, oh, here we go with the Bills again. I'm a little scared this is the week. But I'm going to say it's not. I'm going to say Josh Allen's for real. He's rolling, and Buffalo gets the win.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Bills as well. They're just playing good complementary football. You get Matt Milano back as well. Like, I think the Bills.
I was thinking about Matt Milano earlier today when I saw the Bieniemy news, because I remember going to that press conference and asking him that question about Milano last year. Remember the good old days when the Commanders were good when Eric Bieniemy was here? And that was 2 jobs ago for Bieniemy. Anyway, you were saying?
Nah, I just think the Bills, they're getting healthier. They're getting their people back. Amari Cooper was back. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills here. I'm going to go with the Bills.
All right, Bears and 49ers. It's an interesting game for all the wrong reasons. 49ers, without Christian McCaffrey, without Jordan Mason,
obviously Purdy's been banged up a little bit, but it's all on him. Defensively, they haven't been the same. And then for the Bears, it's the first game without Eberflus. So they've had 10 days since the Thanksgiving disaster. Thomas Brown's been in charge. He made the offense better instantly. They haven't had it pay off with any wins yet, but like the offense looked way more competent. The defense we know has been good. Part of that was definitely Flus, but also they were playing kind of in spite of him because they couldn't stand him the last 3-4 weeks. I think I'm going to take Chicago in the upset here, which would, by the way, be their first road win of the year. They are 0-5 away from Chicago.
God dang, maybe I should go with the 49ers, but no, I'm not. I picked the Bears in competition Wednesday. I think this is a good opportunity for them to bounce back, especially after Flus got fired. And the 49ers, no Christian, no Trent. I think Bosa's questionable, I think. So, again, this has been the 49ers all year. They've just been banged up, not their year. I'm surprised they haven't started tanking yet. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears here.
Yeah. Chargers and Chiefs, maybe the game of the day, coming up at 8:20. We will see, though. Chargers haven't been quite the same since J.K. Dobbins went down. That being said, the Chiefs haven't exactly been juggernauts, despite the fact that they're 6-0 at home and 11-1 overall. They're favored by 4. The weather is not going to be crazy. Sometimes December in Kansas City, it's like 7 degrees and terrible, and here would come the good weather Chargers in, even though Jim Harbaugh, that dude knows, he loves to play in the snow. Jim Harbaugh was probably one of those guys that when he was playing, he'd warm up without a shirt on if it was below 30 degrees because he just found it fun. It would be no shirt and khakis. But Harbaugh, I got nothing on that, Anthony. You're just going to sit there in your silly costume and not laugh at my jokes?
I was agreeing with you.
Okay. You took it seriously. Long story short, I think Kansas City will find a way because they always do. Just bet on Mahomes and live with the results. So I'll take Kansas City, but I'm very intrigued to see how competitive LA is here without Dobbins. With a little bit more time, can they find a running back that can get their running game back going? And Kansas City's defense is not quite what it was earlier in the season either. So as they continue to find things and move towards the playoffs, to Spags start turning up the heat a little bit, because we know he can junk it up with anybody. He just hasn't as of late.
Yeah, I think the Chargers going to ride Gus Edwards. They got to figure out, go back to their identity. I'm going with the Chargers to pull off the upset. I think they're going to get back to smash mouth football. They had played against the Ravens, and the Ravens' run defense is just really good. So
yeah,
I'm going to go with them. And I think we skipped a game, Craig.
We did. What game did we skip?
The Colts versus the Broncos.
How did I skip that game?
I don't know.
Where did it go?
They're
Colts,
425 though.
They are? Where is Anthony?
Oh no. That's next week. My bad. I'm sorry.
I was about to say
they have a bye week this week.
The Colts.
I'm sorry.
The Colts have a bye week.
Yes.
Along with the Broncos, the Patriots, the Commanders, the Ravens, and the Texans.
I got too excited. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm looking forward to next Sunday's game.
I see that. We still have one more game, and it's the Monday Nighter.
Ooh.
Bengals and Cowboys. Ready to talk about this game?
Yes, sir.
1, 2, 3. Bengals. All right. How about them Cowboys? All right. When we get back, speaking of teams that are bad at their sport, I'm sorry that I just said that. That was mean. Because the Cowboys were trying to be good. They failed. The Wizards, well, they weren't exactly trying to be good, but now that they've lost 16 in a row, is it okay that they're this bad? We're going to talk about it next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Anthony is still wearing his absolutely ridiculous getup, and I'm here for it.
I love costumes.
Yeah, you are a big Halloween guy. You're like, Anthony, you can play dress up on Friday. Anthony's like, this is punishment? This is Competition Wednesday, Wheel of Mediocre Punishment? This isn't punishment. This is a joy. For me, it's punishment.
I think I'll bring mine back out next week whenever you wear yours.
So you're gonna double up. Okay, Anthony, you're officially never allowed to spin this again because you enjoy it too much and it's supposed to hurt. You know what would be really funny though? If you wore the costume like while you ate hot wings or something.
That would be a lot.
That way you were just like you're like crying but also looking.
Oh yeah,
like it'd be pretty
that would
funny.
add to it for sure.
Yeah, it would be pretty funny. Okay, what's not funny is the fact that the Wizards have lost 16 straight basketball games. And I am genuinely torn on how big of a deal this is. So, Anthony, I'm gonna make two arguments that are opposite each other. And I need you to tell me which one's more compelling. So the first one is, I think, the way probably most fans feel when your team loses 16 straight, which is, this sucks. And by the way, the counter argument is not, this is okay, just to be clear. But the first argument is, this is not only bad, but it shows that these guys don't know what they're doing. These guys being Winger and Dawkins. Because we were promised more competitiveness this year. Not necessarily more wins, but hey, we're going to get blown out. You're not going to get blown out as much this year. We're going to be way more competitive. And yeah, it's still going to be hard and whatever, but like the absolute know you're going to lose every time you show up, get absolutely lambasted on a every other night basis is just not going to happen. And Brian Keefe is the right guy for the job because we know that he can get that out of this team because he did it last year. And, you know, he wasn't the only guy we interviewed. Don't you worry. No other names got out, but we did a thorough search. And all of these things that we're just kind of told and trusted, like, hey, you got to trust us. Well, here are the scores during the 16-game losing streak. You lose by 20 to the Heat. Oh, God, I'm going to try to do a lot of math here. You lose by 20 to the Heat, 13 to the Warriors, 24 to the Grizzlies. Lose by, that's 27 to the Magic. The Rockets was 15, 9 to the Spurs. You lose by 12 to the Hawks, 20 to the Pistons, 28 to the Knicks. That is a 12-point loss to the Celtics, 12 points to the Pacers, 19 to the Bulls, 121, 96. That's 25 to the Clippers, 10 to the Bucks. You were in that game. Oh God, that's 21 to the Cavs, and then last night you lose by 36. So you've lost in that 16 games, 15 of them by double digits. And the one that was not double digits was literally 9 points. That's not good. And that not only is it not good for now, and it feels like you've been lied to for now about being competitive because there ain't a lot of those games that are close at halftime and then, they got away late. Like the Bucks game the other night was like that. They were in that Bucks game. And then down the stretch, they missed a couple shots. Bucks make a couple shots, and it winds up being a 10-point loss. Okay, that happens. Sometimes even it's a 2-point game with 90 seconds to go. They hit one shot, you start fouling, you miss a couple, and the final score balloons. That wasn't these games. They weren't close late. There are times that it feels like we got home from doing the show leading into the game at like 7:30, and the game tipped at 7, and it was already over by the time I could get the TV on. That's less than ideal. So that you would think would have some long-term repercussions on these young guys. Like, oh my God, how can they survive and develop in this losing environment? So that's I guess side one of this argument, Anthony, which I would say is pretty damning and pretty compelling. The other side of it is this. They have stated out loud that this is what they're calling a deconstruction segment of the rebuild. And I do think it is worth, in fairness, pointing out that if we're going to use that analogy and take it to buildings, right? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about building. You deconstruct a building. You don't drive past a building that is being torn down and go, oh, that new building looks hideous. Because they haven't started actually building it yet. Now, maybe they've ordered some parts and those beams and whatever in the background. In this case, that's your Alex Sars, your Keyshawn Georges, etc. Bub Carrington, Bilal. They've got in a warehouse somewhere. It just so happens that the warehouse is on the construction site. Maybe even, hey, there's boxes of stuff that's going to get built. They're going to get put in the right place eventually. But you don't drive past a construction site, look at a building that is being torn down as that big giant ball goes crashing through it, and go, that new building looks hideous. And in that way, it kind of doesn't matter how bad it is right now. And to the point that Josh Robbins made when he joined us on set at Capital One Arena yesterday, there is a real downside to accidentally being too good. There could be a downside to being too bad, but that line is less clear. The line of you're too good is if there's lotteries for the first 4 selections. I don't know that people fully appreciate this, or it's one of those things that you remember in June every year when they have the lottery, right? Or May every year when they have the lottery. But there's lotteries for the first 4 picks. And the odds are basically the same for all 4 of those. So they do a lottery for the first pick. If you get the first pick, your ping pong balls come off the board. They do a lottery for the second pick. And obviously, like, if you get the first pick, you're no longer eligible for the second unless you have a second pick. So you get the first pick, take out that team, reshuffle the odds the way they're supposed to be. Second pick lottery, reshuffle the odds. Third, reshuffle the odds. Fourth, reshuffle the odds. And there's a chance, mathematically it's small, but that if you have the worst record in the league, you lose all 4 of those lotteries. Now, if you're one of the worst 4 teams who gets booted out and you don't win a lottery, you then get slated from the 5th pick on into reverse order. So if you are the worst team in the league, the absolute worst you can draft, if you get 0 lottery luck, is 5th. In the eyes of many NBA scouts, this is a 5-player draft. And you got at least 5 guys that all would have gone ahead of Sarr and Reece Arshea in the 24 draft that are going to be in the 25 draft. And we know that Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey are the 2 bells of the ball at the very top of it, both of whom could be franchise players. And Flagg looks like a potential like all-timer. So if there's only so much downside to, and we don't even know, like, hey, the biggest downside is these young players are going to be around a lot of losing and it could stunt their development. But the guy who's most important isn't even here yet. And that it doesn't make any sense to judge a new building based off how you're taking down the old one. Then how much does any of this losing really matter? That's kind of the fundamental question here for the Wizards. Anthony has taken his disguise off. He has put his headphones on. What say you, Anthony Haney?
This is a serious conversation, Craig. That's the only reason I took that off. But I think of the 2 stances you made, I think I will go with the latter.
Ooh, the closing argument came on strong.
I think I will go with the latter, but I would say that I feel as though, some of the cornerstone pieces that we do have right now, the guys like Bilal Coulibaly, who has struggled.
That's a bad month.
Yeah, he has struggled. Alex Sarr, he's still finding his way. Keyshawn is out with the injury. Bub got off to a good start to the season, but, it slowed a little bit. But even if I just look at Bilal, I think he's our best, up-and-coming star right now. And if he's struggling, I think that's the most concerning thing as we try to, build towards whatever we're building to. I think if he was going out here, we were losing, and he was doing just fine, shooting well and things of that nature, being a playmaker, building on from last year, I think that would be something, worth being optimistic for. But the fact that he's struggling and everybody else is struggling and we're going out here not being competitive, I think that takes away from what we're trying to get at.
100%. And I do think that it's worth saying there's an answer that's somewhere between the two.
Yeah.
We don't have to just accept that this is okay while also saying that they haven't ruined it yet. Because to go back to the building analogy, like if you make a severe crack in the foundation, like let's say you're knocking the building down, but you're building on the same foundation, which doesn't exactly work for this analogy, but like whatever, just use that because there's only so look. I'm not a general contractor. I'm a radio host. I think anyone listening knows that. If not, there's your reminder. But you make some damage to the foundation, or here since I said Bilal and them are parts laying on the construction site ready to be assembled. If you blast out a steel beam and that steel beam falls on your new parts and damages them, that's a better analogy. Well, now you got damaged parts. Now you're gonna have to order some new ones, and how you deconstruct does matter. And so I think that's the big question for the Wizards over the next couple of months, like heading towards the trade deadline, is what do you do to try to make sure that you deconstruct carefully? And that is something that I hope the Wizards press corps asks. Frankly, I will take it upon myself to try to see if I can get to some stuff and maybe ask a few questions. I'm actually going to the game on Sunday. Maybe I'm going to show up. Maybe I'll show up at the pregame presser on Sunday. I'll see if I can go. But I think that's an important question is like, are you deconstructing carefully enough that you don't do long-term damage? Because you can both admit that the deconstruction is happening and that it doesn't really matter. And that the most important thing, frankly, is losing so that you have the best chance possible at being as high as possible in this upcoming draft, while also saying like, hey, we got to make sure we protect what we got here right now for the pieces especially that are going to be a part of the future. We could take a couple of calls on this. 301-230-0980. You want to chime in on the Wizards' 16-game losing streak and how you feel about where they are right now. You cool waiting? You just trusting the process, or are you starting to get a little bit concerned? 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 6:30, we wrap up the week because we're almost done. Georgetown Hoops on the station tonight at 6:45. It's a loaded night in the NBA, so there's all kinds of stuff going on. And we're going to talk about some of those random happenings around the world of sports right now in a long-forgotten segment that we haven't done in a while because we've been in football season. We haven't had time for this thing, that thing, the other thing. It's called This, That, or the Other Thing. Actually, Anthony, we have breaking news on one of our topics here. One of our topics is tonight is the WNBA's expansion draft. The Golden State Valkyrie are coming into the league in 2025, aka this year, aka they need a team. And so the Valkyrie are going through their expansion draft process literally right now. We don't know any of the names because the WNBA is doing this in the dumbest way possible. But at 6:30 tonight on ESPN, the draft from a mystery list of names is going to unveil a lot of the new players on the Valkyrie. They'll have the first non-lottery pick, so they'll pick fifth, barring any trades, coming up in the WNBA draft in April. And there is a huge name that has actually just leaked as one of their first two selections. Kate Martin, who was Caitlin Clark's teammate at Iowa, played her rookie season last year with the Las Vegas Aces, is going to be one of the foundational members at Golden State. This is an interesting pick. Kate was in and out of the rotation last year, so I would assume you want to get players that can play. From a marketing standpoint, I can tell you as someone who went to a number of Aces games because one of my friends played on the team, and I went to games in Vegas. I went to games, so their preseason game down in South Carolina. I went to a couple games in Indiana, as some folks might remember, doing shows from all over the place. The Iowa fans show up, and from a marketing standpoint, to get one of the bigger names with a huge personal following, makes a lot of sense. She's also an extremely versatile basketball player who I think is a legit WNBA player who's only going to get better. That probably a bench player in the league, but or of a fourth, fifth starter type, but is a piece that can fit with anybody. She'll defend, she rebounds, she'll shoot it. She doesn't demand the ball. Very easy to plug and play. But from a name standpoint, super interesting. Kate Martin going to the Golden State Valkyrie. The other name that has leaked is Kayla Thornton, who is going to be the player that is from the world champion New York Liberty. So each team will basically send a player to Golden State. So there will be someone who gets selected off the Mystics. I highly doubt that it will be Aaliyah Edwards, Shakira Austin, or Brittany Sykes. If so, that would be incredibly awkward because all three were at the Wizards game last night and got plenty of camera time and social media post and the whole deal. They were sitting courtside. But we'll find out in the next 15, 20 minutes probably who the Mystic is that is headed out that way. Any guesses, Anthony?
If I had to choose one,
I have no idea because I don't know who they're going to protect. My guess is they protect those three. They protect Ariel. I don't know how many players they can protect. This whole thing's been so secretive. It's so stupid. I hate it.
Who's the rookie guard?
Julie Van Loo.
Julie Van Loo.
I could see that. I would.
I mean, if we, especially if we get a guard in the draft, I don't know
yeah. The funny thing is, they don't have a GM or a coach right now. So their former assistant GM is probably the one making these decisions under Michael Winger. But Michael's, I don't know how. And I know Michael, paid attention and it's part of his job, but they haven't hired anyone yet. They're one of two job openings remaining in the WNBA. So it's pretty interesting on the Mystics side of it. Of course, they're also monitoring. Let's see if Paige Beckers tells Dallas to buzz off because the rumors are that Paige doesn't want to go to Dallas, that she wants to play either for LA or DC. So
come on to DC, baby.
Come on, Paige. Come on. Force your way here, please.
Please.
Kurt Miller down in Dallas, please pick up the phone when whoever the new GM is gets hired and calls. So that's going on and starts in 4 minutes on ESPN. But The Athletic and our friend Sabrina Merchant has reported that Kate Martin and Kayla Thornton are the first two members of the Golden State Valkyrie. Speaking of drama, have you followed any of the F1 stuff that's been going on? They're entering their final weekend, and there are storylines galore.
I have not.
Dude, A lot of people don't even watch F1. They just wait till Drive to Survive. Yo, Drive to Survive next year is going to be fire. The Netflix show that follows the Formula One drivers around during the season. And obviously, you have a season, you have an off season, and then right before the next season, they drop the Drive to Survive. And the storylines in this year, from literally the start of the season, when we found out that Lewis Hamilton was going to leave Mercedes for Ferrari. So he is in his final race weekend for Mercedes. He looked great this morning in his final practice after a couple of rough weeks here where his emotions kind of got the best of him. Just so much emotion. You can imagine. Won 6 world championships with Mercedes, and this is his last weekend, and he knows it. So kind of all building, and hopefully he can have a great weekend. But his teammate, George Russell, got in a spat with world champion Max Verstappen last week before the race, after the qualifying session. And they've been exchanging a war of words all week. So all I can say is, if you want some good sports drama and you want people that hate each other rivalry-wise, Formula One this weekend. Watch the coverage. Watch the cars vroom vroom around the track, because you have some guys that really probably, if they could turn like injuries off, would love to crash into each other at 200 miles an hour.
Am I weird for not really being in on drama? I'm not a big drama guy.
I think storylines make, like, whether it's I think it depends. I don't think it's weird, but I think you're probably more into it than you want to admit.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah, like if you hear some gossip, like, you want to know.
All right, maybe just a little bit.
Maybe your intrigue gets the best of you.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, like, you don't want to not know.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm not like, oh yeah, this stuff, sports, yeah, give it to me. And in case anyone's already up on this story and wants my opinion, Max is a front-running whiny baby. What was the other thing that we were gonna say?
Juan Soto.
Oh yeah, we're also on Juan Soto watch for the 10th straight day. So we'll see if the Nats secretly are making a move, but it does look like it's the Dodgers and all the other rich teams that you'd expect. They could have signed him a couple years ago for a lot less money. Nationals should have done that then. All right, that's this, that, and the other thing. Full of takes. When we get back, oh wait, hold on. You want my take on the first one, the first story? Expansion drafts are stupid, and we shouldn't have them in any sport. The NWSL did away with theirs, and the NBA is going to expand in the next couple of years. No expansion drafts. I hate them. So stupid. Hey, I signed a contract. Give them a bunch of money in free agency.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, especially the way the W is right now, all their free agents. Like, Kate Martin had a great time in Vegas last year. She wants to be there, and she just gets drafted by someone else. Like, imagine if you love doing this show and 6-7. They open a new. Actually, I don't like to take an existing one. They open a new sports radio show in some other city, and they're like, yeah, we selected Anthony Haney to be the producer of the afternoon show, and you just had to move. That would be terrible. You don't have a say. It's not humane. Quit treating humans as commodities. They sign contracts. They should be binding. That's there. This, that, and the other thing, full of takes. When we get back, real things real people said into real microphones, and we wrap up here on a Friday edition of The Hoffman Show.
It's the Hoffman Show on a Friday. Last segment here on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, where Anthony has put his disguise back on. He is dancing. It's a good time. We're having a good time. Oh, he's pumping the volume. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if Anthony's disguise came, all I got in the mail was this Take Command t-shirt, which I'm pretty psyched about. You can get one too. Go to the 1067 The Fan store, and you can get it. By the way, Anthony, the headphones on the football was my design idea.
Oh, so you came up with this?
Yeah, they sent me a couple of designs, and I was like, I really like these. There's just one thing missing. And they're like, what is that? And I was like, the shirt doesn't let you know that it's a podcast. Because, like, there's other Take Command things, right? The team has done some Take Command stuff. Other people have done Take Command in a variety of ways since they've been called the Commanders. And so I was like, we got to make sure that people know, like, it's the podcast. What if we put some headphones on somewhere in there? And they were like, say less. They resent me this, and I was like, I like that. So, you know.
It's a great touch, Greg.
I'm a designer now. T-shirt designer of this Take Command t-shirt. Available now from Breaking Tea. Coming up on Monday, I don't know what we're going to do. I guess we'll go around the NFL. Should I do a 1st and 10 from the NFL weekend?
Hell to the yeah.
Okay, so we could do that. I don't know what else we're going to do because we don't have a Commanders game to talk about. But we have some big stuff planned next week. Can't talk about all of it yet, but excited for that on multiple fronts. So make sure you keep tuning in from 4 to 6:45. Or actually, I think, Anthony, next week, every single show we do is till 7 o'clock.
They are.
Yeah. We've been cut short. Some would say
we've been spoiled a little bit.
We've been spoiled by not having to work as many hours as originally prescribed. Others would say the powers that be have been robbing you of us, of this show that you love so much.
Hey, it's all about perspective, Craig.
Yeah. Others would say that's very egotistical, Hoffman. You should relax a little bit. And those people are very, very loud in my YouTube comments. All right. Anything else from a housekeeping department, Anthony? We picked all the games. We did all the things.
Oh, you haven't told us if the package arrived yet.
I do think the package did arrive. Let me double check.
You could have given us a sneak peek.
I wasn't. Look, if we could do it for the segment, bro, it's like 28 degrees. Yeah, it did just arrive. It's like, how cold is it right now? It's 31. I'm not running down there again.
It's 31 degrees.
Yeah, I got to get outside to get my packages. I'm not going out there again. I'm not running down to concierge. No, we're not doing that. What we are going to do is wrap up the show with two very different quotes from two very different coaches.
Real things.
We're not going to suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11.
It was Carl Anthony telling OG.
Phones.
And then Dan Campbell.
It's actually damn good.
All right, before we get into the sound bites, Anthony, this just scrolling through Instagram. By the way, you can follow us at Hoffman.sports, Hoffman.sports on Instagram. There's a quote from Jaylen Brown that said, our offense is based around how killer whales attack seals. Joe Mazzulla is a very interesting person, the Celtics coach.
He said, what?
Our offense is designed around how killer whales attack seals.
Yeah, he needs to be investigated, man.
Jaylen, Mazzulla, or both?
Mazzulla more so.
Yeah.
Jaylen, that's strike one, dude.
Yeah. Jaylen, we'll see you in season 2 of Starting 5. Okay, as for the other coach with a very different kind of speech, how about Dan Campbell last night after the win? This is what this segment was invented for.
I told you you'd never forget this game. You will never forget this game. We don't have to talk about how tough we are. We don't have to talk about how resilient we are.
Out time 42-40.
Been living it. Where's our defense at? Offense, that's the way to step up, man. That's the way to step up. There you go, Skip. Keep throwing up, whatever you're doing up there. That's the way to freaking lay it on the line. Guys,
Literally,
I'm so
dude was
freaking
throwing
proud
up.
of you, man. That's the way to show up. You talk about pressure, we live in pressure. That's where we freaking thrive. You did it again. You did it again. All right? It doesn't matter who's playing for us. It doesn't matter what's going on. You always find a way to win. That's what champions do. This is not happenstance, man. This doesn't just happen. This has been in the making, man. This has been in the making. All right? We are all supposed to be here together, man. We're destined for this. Just stay the course. That's 12, and that's 4 in the division.
Man, that's like one of the first things I saw when I woke up this morning, Anthony. I was ready to go.
His energy is just different.
Yeah. I love it. Everything that dude's about it. And so he's about it. Like, that's not fake. That's real. By the way, I know you said you haven't watched Hard Knocks yet, but has the assistant offensive line coach speech from the Browns made it to your timeline yet?
I don't think so.
One of the worst speeches I've ever heard in my life.
Really?
Dude's up in front of the room. He's the assistant O-line coach, and he's up there talking to his group, and to the quarterbacks are in there. And he's like, everybody wants to sack the quarterback, so don't let them. And some people are like, yeah, I'm fired up. And I'm like, you're what's wrong with planet Earth. Just so, literally, it's like an SNL skit of a football coach.
That's hilarious.
It's horrendous. I'm embarrassed for the guy. Anyway, that's our show. We'll see you on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. Georgetown Hoops next here on the Team 980.